So we have ContinuuMini. This is what it looks like. This is a prototype. Well, all these are prototypes. When I met with Ed here, the last time I met Ed face to face was in Switzerland, and now we're in Paris together. But we've learned to work. Oh, I'm sorry.
It will be better for me.
Oh, I could. Okay.
Yeah.
How do I do
no,
this?
you cannot because you have, yeah.
Because I'm flailing around too much.
They don't
Okay.
trust you.
Okay.
Okay.
Put it somewhere here.
Okay.
Over here.
Well, I'm admittedly very nervous because when I first met Ed again here in Paris, I learned in my jet lag stupor that I really need to meet him face to face more. So I've done a bunch of very careful engineering tests and missed the forest for the tree in front of me. So the first few days here were kind of scary, but as we sort of worked out some things and tried to make the prototype more playable. The prototype, I will pass one around. If you get one of these, there's a mailing tube or instrument case, as you want to call it. There's a USB cable, and, well, this one is for the USA, but a USB block, and the Mini. So now I didn't invent mailing tubes for this, as you know from EOWave and from various other places. It's possible to use mailing tubes. So I'll pass this around. When you look at this, no, this isn't the final one, but it will look nice. On the bottom, there's a nice sticker that explains how the menu system works. There's an LED which didn't fit. Sorry, I shouldn't laugh. Didn't fit in the enclosure. That will be fixed, it turns out. The buttons also stick out too far, but in general, it's the same idea. This one isn't playable. This one was one that was a fail, so I will pass it around because there you go. The one that Ed is actually going to play for you today has, and you're welcome to play some other ones later on. The white one is the one, it looks funny if you look inside it. It's clearly scrap neoprene sort of taped together. It plays the best of all of them, and that's why Ed is going to play it. I have 3 other red ones that also play, not quite as well, but
And this
but
surface is quite recessed.
yeah, the surface is recessed, and it's made out of a very small piece of neoprene sample I happened to have along. I just wasn't prepared for this. I was going to show this to Ed, and he was going to say, wow, this is great. And yeah, it didn't work out that way.
Yeah, I think it's great.
But now it's very much better after just a few days face to face. So I should say some things about the device. It has some features in common. We call it ContinuuMini. It has some features in common with the Continuum. Unlike most controllers you'll find nowadays, it has the temporal accuracy that I talked about this morning, so 700 microsecond scan time. That's twice the 350 of a real Continuum. It's still very fast. You're going to, it has pressure sensitivity, which is good if you're a Continuum player and you want this just to be a smaller Continuum that fits in your pocket. It's not that, but it has good pressure sensitivity, though not the dynamic range of a real Continuum. It has the fine pressure, the reports of attack trajectory rather than the 7-bit strike. The 30 micron thing, yes, you can roll your fingers and do pitch adjustments. And it's got the full Eagan matrix. It's got everything that the Eagan matrix has to offer. It has the same polyphony as a Continuum. Now, this is going to be a source of confusion, I think. In polyphony, I mean how many voices it can play. It can detect at most 2 fingers. I had thought the single finger play was much easier, but Ed told me no. So we're probably going to even drop the single finger play. If you want to play with 1 finger or 1 note at a time, the 2-finger play is very nice because when you overlap notes, you don't get some nasty in-between thing. So it's actually quite useful. So you can put several of them next to each other. All those wonderful things. It's marked on the surface here, like you're used to from a Continuum. It also has a guitar E string marking in case that's your preference. Yeah. So what else can I say? It's more Troutonium. Like we've borrowed in recent times many ideas from the Martineau to really formalize the touche, for instance, on the continuum was a pretty big change. We could always have multiple fingers affect the sound and stuff, but to really make that a core part of it was a change. Well, in this case, this is much more Troutonium-like in the sense that it has a single, it doesn't have all the rods, which is one of the things that makes the continuum so expensive. It has a single surface underneath, which is suspended just like in a Troutonium by springs. And then it, and then it has a ribbon underneath the neoprene, which is a much less expensive way of detecting pitch. The ribbons are somewhat nonlinear and stuff, but it's calibrated to one is individually calibrated to make up for that. It is set up much more for standalone. We expect most people use it standalone. Ed is using it standalone there, although we'll hook it up to the Eagan matrix because he told me he couldn't remember what his presets were. But there is a display. Okay. So,
showing.
yes, in this case, a category and a preset number, and you can, with a 4-menu system, which has cheat sheet on the bottom of each unit, you can change presets. So to save costs, the ContinuuMini doesn't have real DIN5 MIDI. I'm a fan of real DIN5 MIDI, but as has been mentioned before, high-end instruments have the DIN5 MIDI, and it's just so much less expensive and so much smaller to do USB. It has USB MIDI. So if you're going to connect to a computer anyway, like for the editor, that's actually a convenience. It's not all bad. It also has only one pedal jack, and it's a 1/4 inch. You're going to need a little adapter cable, which costs $3.77 at Sweetwater from Hosa. But yes, again, the 1/4 inch jack was quite large compared to the printed circuit board in there. So I was, this was a way to save some money on something that most people don't use much. The printed circuit board is, the big 1/4 inch jack just doesn't fit the form factor well. This jack also will talk to the CVC and the micro CVC. Yeah, you want to, well, you could pull out the micro CVC, but he has made a cable that does the 1/8 inch jack to the micro CVC. So if you have a modular setup, you can certainly use it that way. Yes. So here, I'll stand close to you so you can be, your voice can be heard. But
oh, great, yeah.
Yeah, you can see the micro CVC here, and it's
there's a cable plugs into the plugs into the micro CVC. There's a nice threaded connector on there, and if I
yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. And
this plugs into.
It'll plug into the pedal external jack. It's a shared jack. Again, the intention here was very much to try to make a lower cost device. And I think, especially when you hear Ed play it, it's pretty nice. My family has been enjoying me listening to putting fishing weights on it and doing all sorts of tests with, so I think they're happy I'm in Paris. But in any case, yes.
I was
Okay.
just going to say that, I don't know if this is accurate, but it's
Here,
the
I'll stand
same-
close to you.
It's the same. That's not, okay. It's the since it's the same shark as the Continuum, the library is completely compatible. So you can get 1 or 2 fingers at a time, but the polyphony is actually the same as you get on a regular Continuum. So that comes in useful for sounds that resonate. If you play arpeggios or play percussively, you'll hear all the individual notes resonating. But it is different feel than a Continuum. It's we're really spoiled with that machine. So this is a very playable, expressive musical instrument, but it is a different experience. Consequently, the library, before we release it, it's going to be fine-tuned. So there'll be mini versions of a number of the patches, but it runs on exactly the same editor right now that we have for the Continuum.
So yeah, so this is the first public viewing of it here. Actually, we're going to also show it at Super Booth and let people there play it. We have a Kickstarter plan for late summer, and as it says up there, the initial price will be $549. But unlike the Continuum, we hope to make a device that a music store actually makes some money on when they sell it. I've talked to friends at other companies and sort of figured out, okay, so what, how do they price structure things? So MSRP here will be $8.99. Some stores might sell it for a little less, but it's in that range. And why don't you play a little bit? I'll go get some toys to look at. Do you want to be in duo tactic?
I am.
Oh, okay.
That's why a little bit loud there.
This one has some Y change.
What's the octave range?
There's a built-in.
You can rock that one back and forth too.
There is octave. It's just over 2 octaves, and there's octave switches. So like when I was playing the violin here, you can go all the way down from. To that point, so. Let's see.
So that one has a somewhat recessed surface, but that's not a final. That's
It's going to be received.
no, it'll be up at the top. This is- Did you want to hook it up to the computer?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. Say when you're ready.
Go ahead.
So we have to, we'll just talk to people for a little bit. I'll start up the editor. So we'll
Yeah, we're
run it
gonna
off the
look at
Mac.
it now. It actually runs off the power from a Mac too.
Is Y doing it?
It is, yeah. So actually, but Y does quite a bit less on this one. So that's where a lot of the patches are going to be fine-tuned.
The dynamic range is also less. I mean, it's still good if we can run an editor here. It'll be a little easier for him to. Let's see, what am I doing here? Not this thing.
Just launching it there.
Yeah, it'll take a little while. Yeah, why don't you be nice to it? It's all prototype stuff, so I'm a little bit nervous about. Just wait. Okay, so from the on-screen display, I don't know, like in this one here, play forward, or just play in the center and then rock it. So there is Y variation. For those of you familiar with the editor, you can see the Y variation, but the Y dimension here is very small, and that's one of the challenges in playing this thing, is you can't lay your fingers flat. Now, right now in these prototypes, the surface is way down there because of other issues we had. That will not be the case. So you can play with a more flat-fingered kind of approach on the final version when that comes out. Right now, you'll occasionally hear him clack, and that's because he's hitting the sides of it instead of hitting down the narrow channel. What's that now?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
So, I think we should have people give it a test. See what they
Okay.
think. Yeah.
Yes.
How does the sound output compare to the standard Continuum?
It's hotter right now. I'm trying to figure out. It's very clean. It's the same cleanliness. In fact, I just spent a lot of time miniaturizing the circuit, but I can pass that around. It's a prototype. It's not going to hurt it to get it zapped. Yeah, so it's the same thing. It has the same film resistor, capacitors and such in the circuit, and so it's very high quality. It does not have the digital audio out. Again, it's a matter of few people use that, so try to save money on every little part.
What's your best guess when it'll be available?
Well, it was earlier before, but so the prototype I came with looked more like a final version, and then we had to make last-minute modifications. So I'm hoping late summer.
Late summer.
Now, late summer would be the Kickstarter,
Yes.
and then there'll be some delay. So the people, assuming we make our Kickstarter goal, then there'll be.
In time for now?
Oh, certainly,
Okay.
certainly. Yeah, but I would expect if you sign up early for the Kickstarter, it'll be about 2 months.
Okay. So third quarter. Fourth quarter.
Yeah, I mean, you're asking for a guess.
I'm telling you.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yes, and I mean, again, we need to make a minimum Kickstarter amount because part of the making something lower cost is larger quantities. So
One more question. So this is a 2x processor?
yes,
Yeah.
it's a 2x processor.
Okay,
that's
so
right.
why can't it be the expansion too? When people want an expansion,
Oh,
why
well,
wouldn't they just get this and figure out how to interface?
there's no
digital I/O.
Yeah, there's no fast communication between this and there's no fast communication between mostly now the expander is actually done internal, but even external, it's the same. It's done through a high-speed digital link, and this doesn't have that connector on it. Doesn't have the big XLR connectors on it with the digital link.
Oh, okay, I
So-
understand.
So it just doesn't have the right connectors. But it will help in the long run. The thing about the Continuum is that it helps with some of the costs because I can transfer some of that technology back into the Continuum. But in the end, the Continuum has had the same price now since 2004, and the way I've been keeping it that way is by finding places I can save money. Right now, actually, that's an issue again because the cost of aluminum has gone up again. So the aluminum work. So one of the ways I hope to keep the price the same of the Continuum is to transfer some of this technology back into future versions.
Yeah, you might think this is crazy, but I thought that maybe one of the things you should do would be to just lose the fingerboard completely and just have a device that can hook up to Eagan matrix to be controlled over MIDI that you could play as an independent instrument. I know it's contrary to the whole gestalt, but
Yeah.
I was
Yeah,
wondering-
it's the thing is that right now I'm really interested in the fast timbre feedback loop, and it'll be if you look at MPE devices. I don't know if you saw the earlier at the first talk. I showed some slide of what you actually get over MIDI from devices, and it's just that isn't what I spent my life
But you
work
could feed it
working.
right into the AES or through a converter of the Continuum if you want. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, in any case, this
Right.
device doesn't have fast
Yeah.
digital I/O.
Right.
But
In fact-
certainly it responds to MIDI. So
Yeah.
Well,
it's
USB
just-
USB MIDI, which is substantially slower than DIN5 MIDI. It's about 2/3 the rate, depending on what you're sending. But just because it doesn't have running mode, and for whatever reason, technical reasons, the USB MIDI is somewhat slower than regular MIDI. Certainly for a 2-finger device, that's fine. You know, we do fine with it. But all of it's at a little bit lower level than the expensive, you know, than the real thing.
Yeah, but right now, what, 80% of the people are using USB MIDI anyway, so you're not really out of the market for most people.
But they use the Eagan matrix internally.
Yeah.
There is no, as far as I know, the Eagan matrix is the only tight timbre feedback loop synthesizer there is right now. And since that's been all of the effort for all those years, certainly interested in that. And even this device, despite the fact that it's much less expensive sensing and such, the basic fact that it has sub-millisecond sensing and that it has good pitch accuracy, so you don't have to, you know, you're not stuck with 12 notes out of a pitch scale, and that sort of thing. I think the best players on this device will actually be able to do amazing things with it, but it's you know, a different challenge to play when you first go up to it. Yeah, you can get sound out of it and stuff, but it's not the same as a Continuum either.
Yeah, in that respect, it's a little trickier to play because you come at it from the Continuum point of view. So whenever I go to it, and I've been playing over there, it takes me like, 20 minutes or so to get my head into this thing again. But yeah, it's
Now I know that this is going to be a big deal for people, becoming new Continuum owners, but at the same time, thanks. The size of this device is also perfect for people that are in the modular world too. So besides it working with Hector's, Mu CVC,
Yeah, it was
by-
micro CVC,
by
right?
Russ, will it also be able to interact with the CVC components and the Eagan matrix?
Oh,
to spit
absolutely.
information back out.
Yeah, and it'll work with the micro CVC. It'll work with the bigger regular CVC. So, I mean, as you say, it's much more portable. So for Continuum owners, depending on what you're doing, it may be easier to pocket one of these. So I'm hoping anyway that some Continuum owners will also get this device. And in the end, also this other curious thing happens. Anytime you have limitations on a device, they can be interesting in its own way. So I suspect eventually we'll also see music that you can play on this that isn't really something you could play on the Continuum, just because somebody will find these odd corners of things. As I say, the most important feature here is that it senses quickly, and it has dimensions that it senses super accurately in. And those are things that are generally missing from the idea of the MPE world. The MPE world is still very much stuck on strike velocity, on working with basically looking like a keyboard with better pitch bend information. And so it didn't seem like it was happening, so I decided to make a cheap knockoff of my own product. And we'll see how that goes. I mean, we do inherit a lot of things from the Eagan matrix, a lot of capabilities and a lot of editing.
Clifton, that the micro CVC, it works with the formulas too in the Eagan matrix.
Yes,
It's
it
the
all
same
works.
sort of thing.
Yes.
So
The question here is, some people have, the CVC can work directly from the Continuum, and the micro CVC just sort of generically give you XYZ information, but there's also this other thing you can do. You can pre-process the XYZ information within the Eagan matrix environment, and thereby save dozens of modules that you would have to use in your modular for simple things that you might as well just do in the Eagan matrix, or complicated things you could do in the Eagan matrix.
I'll be addressing that tomorrow. I'm giving
Awesome.
some talk on
Okay.
specifically the micro CVC and a little bit on doing exactly that,
Awesome.
programming, pre-processing through the Eagan matrix before going out to the CVC.
You know what that means, Russ? It means you got to make more of them because it's going to be a big deal.
Well, and to be honest, a lot of this came out of the earlier ContinuuCons. Thank you, Sally, for organizing these things. It was. I also want to thank the generosity of my dad. Actually, gave me some starting money, because the Continuum, I've always put all the money back into it. There was never a pile of money that I could do something new with. But I wanted to have it in a state where in the Kickstarter I can be quite certain this will really work, as opposed to one of the Kickstarter disaster stories. So I've had to put in money up front and develop it, but I'm very happy with the ContinuuCons, because that's where this micro CVC, that was one of the requests at the first ContinuuCon, and hey, the right people were there and it happened, and it was just something practically for me. I've got my hands full already. So so I'm very happy it's gone this way. And for this device, it's especially important. For a Continuum, the big CVC is nice, and per voice, per output, it's not even that much, it's not much more expensive, and there's reasons to get it. But for a small device like this, where you have at most 2 fingers anyway, it really makes sense to have a 2-channel output system. And as you say, the form factor is much nicer for the. So we'll see how it goes. We've never even actually hooked it up. Well, I hooked it up in my tests, but I've learned my lesson this last week. There might be a little more work, but by the end of Super Booth, I suspect we'll have a pretty nice.
I built the cable correctly.
Yeah. Yes. Well, the other one you sent me was right. So. Yeah. Yeah.
So when does the Kickstarter page go live?
Well, we're hoping end of summer. A lot of it depends on, funny things happen to you. Like, I thought I would be a month and a half ahead, but they actually took Chinese New Year's off, which is a good sign for China, because, things are changing there. That wasn't that way too long ago. But anyway, so there was a big backup then, and it took them quite a while. So the prototype process has been slowed by that somewhat. So it'll depend how good the next prototype goes. Also, this time I'll drive up and visit Ed and hopefully work out problems quicker. So I'm hoping for end of summer. I was hoping a month after ContinuuCon. That's not going to happen. I need at least one more prototype cycle. But let's see what else. Yes.
Quick question. So, will John's controller Kilomix still work with the Eagan matrix along with the?
Yes, actually, that's a good point. I didn't think about that.
For stage performance or just in the studio, it'd be great to have access to that as well.
And
a separate USB port.
No, yeah, that'll work. And in fact, I come to think of it, due to Benedict, who insisted on hooking up 2 Continuums early on and having 2 editors running and all that. Due to that guy, you'll actually also, if you have a Mini and a Continuum, you can have editors running for both of them and all that good stuff. So
you're powering that off your laptop?
yes, and it claims it's 500 milliamps. It's actually about 210. I just want to estimate high so that people don't get upset. Yes.
Sorry, another question. So it would be possible to power it from maybe one of those little cell phone charger packs?
Yes. In fact, there'll be another reveal tomorrow, which I can't talk about too much in the Continuum world, because it's supposed to be a thing tomorrow. But yes, there's already such things. But certainly if you have a cell phone extra battery, you can charge it off that. There is no battery built into it. The units, it's quite a small device. It'll actually be yet smaller in the final version, because that recess won't be there anymore. But it'll run for quite a long time off a standard battery. You can figure out the milliamp hours. 210 milliamps is even a bit high. It seemed to be around 190. That's an odd thing, though, depending on, well, it's the same on a laptop. Depending on what you play and what you do, it'll last longer or shorter. Let's see, what else?
Sorry, what is duotactic?
Duotactic just means 2 fingers, which is different than polyphony. Say for instance, you're playing a staccato passage. You play 8 fast notes in a row. You'll hear all 8 notes. You'll hear a decay. Or it has a pedal, sustain pedal, so you can build up clusters that way. I'm sure we'll come up with other ways to use the voices. So it can play several notes at once, but you only get to have 2 fingers down at once. And even the 2 fingers, I would say limited duotactic. for me, not being a very good performer, what I found is when I'm in duotactic mode, trying to play one note at a time and screwing up because I hit multiple fingers at once, it really helps with that. Did you kill it?
Yeah.
Oh, one more question. If you have two connected to your computer,
Yes.
If you have two of them to your computer, do you run one version of Eagan Matrix that knows them
No,
both?
you'd want to run one for each because they're really independent.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So they're it's similar like if you have two continuums connected right now. People, it's useful to have it's useful to have separate Eagan matrix editors. I think. Oh, it's really not happy, isn't it?
It's working though.
Well, I don't understand. Ignore that error message. Oh, you're doing the pedal.
Yeah, just hooking up the pedal so they can do the size.
It's always good to try something the first time in front of an audience, but oh, that's the size thing. Okay. Well, pedal works. Do you want to play something else? Just play one of these sounds. You're playing. Yeah. Maybe I'm too nervous now, but it sounded amazing the other day.
No, it is tricky to get into it.
Okay.
It's not
Yeah.
responding.
So, why don't we not hook it up to an editor that's confused here? I'll just hook it up to the power block again.
Will it come with a power block?
Yeah. Or at least that's the plan. It's hard to get the right power block for every nation on the planet, so I don't know for sure what'll happen with that. But
Yeah, it's
is it acting funny?
no.
Yeah. So that's Ed's, Christoph's
tin whistle.
tin whistle, yeah. With slightly adapted parameters for this. I was just going to put up the funny slide again, if I can find it here. ContinuuCon. There we go. Oh, nope, not that one. All right.
Yeah. Well, people should try it.
Yeah.
See what it's like right now in the prototype form here.
Yeah, keep in mind it's a prototype, but
We have a few little things to work out still, but
and if you are coming to Super Booth, we'll have as many as we can cram on the table set up there. So yeah. Okay. Well, thanks. I strongly suggest play in the center and just play one finger at a time first, because it's